Notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Sun, and the Two River Times, and by posting at the Middletown Township Municipal Building and filing with the Township Clerk, all on January 5th, 2023. Committeeman Clark. Committeewoman Kratz.
Here.
Committeeman Sedembrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Hybel.
Here.
Mayor Perry. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to honor the troops serving worldwide, defending our constitutions, freedoms, and way of life. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the Township Committee to approve a consent agenda that would include resolutions 2393 through 23-102.
Second.
Committeewoman Kratz. Committeeman Sedembrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hybel.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Motion passes to approve consent agenda. Next item on the agenda tonight, we have one discussion item regarding parking issues on Sunnyside Road.
Yeah, I sent everyone an email, and I don't know if you got a chance to see the exhibit I got, but I'll just pass them down so you can take a look at it. So as you know, there's a new business has opened up on Sunnyside Road, and they're currently before the zoning board seeking use variance and site plan approval. But with or without that, despite that, something needs to be done with parking on Sunnyside. So what I've given you is there's been some discussion with the neighbors about kind of how to mitigate the parking issues. And so what you have in front of you is a kind of a conceptual idea of how we would limit parking. You can see the area that's marked red is from essentially Sunnyside, on the south side of Sunnyside, is from Everett Road down to the first street, I think the Waterford, Windermere, in Bam Hollow. And on the north side, there would be an area that's currently widened to allow for parallel parking, but it's not really formal. It's just sort of kind of happening informally. So to create proper striped parallel spaces there. And then you see, and that's the area marked in blue, and then you see the area marked in yellow is the possible expansion of that. And the only issue with that is that there's not enough right-of-way width to put parking there now. So the applicant would have to try to acquire that right-of-way. And then that would give us the ability to extend, to get about another 6 spaces for a total of 11, possibly 10, depending on, there's an issue with a telephone pole there. And at some point in the near future, we could introduce an ordinance to effectuate these parking restrictions, because there's no parking allowance on the road now. It's not prohibited, but it's not permitted either. It's just kind of unclear. This would kind of formalize the parking arrangement so that the business is not as impactful as it has been on the neighborhood. And the neighborhood seems to be on board with this concept. So as long as everyone's okay with this, we will start working on the ordinance to put this into effect. And that's all, you don't even need to tell me right now if you just want to get back to me, since I know I just sent it to you today. If you get back to me, if you have any questions about it, just let me know. But if everyone's on board in the next couple of days, we'll start to proceed with preparing the ordinance to limit parking, basically consistent with the drawing.
And this has been an ongoing discussion between the business owner and all the neighbors. And as Tony mentioned, a zoning board special meeting for this application was canceled because the neighbors and the business owner came to a tentative agreement so long as the township was willing to discuss limiting parking over on Sunnyside. Any questions? Okay. All right. Thanks, Tone. So does anybody opposed to Tony beginning to draft that ordinance for introduction? Okay.
Because I'll immediately ask Brian to start doing it.
Great. Can you pass that message along? All right,
So the next item, we would have Township Committee comments.
all right. Committeeman Senabrino? All right, Committeewoman Kratz?
None for me tonight, Mayor.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
I'm gonna hold mine.
All right, Go North, state champions, breaking news, coming down from the Prudential Center. We're gonna see them in a little while. They're heading to North right now, being escorted down. Amazing job, great game. I think 4 overtimes it went, but it ended up going our way, 3-2. So take that, Chatham. What? Yeah. What did it?
You didn't say the sport, so it was.
All right, well, come on, Tone. Be like up to date, all right? You know? Jeez. The only other thing I wanted to mention was tonight we passed a resolution requesting a halt to the offshore wind. We're joining several other municipalities along with Clean Ocean Action. Obviously, there is something that we need this is something we need to stop for the time being while we can examine what's clearly happening, not only along the New Jersey coastline, but New York as well. So I'm proud to join, we're proud to join Clean Ocean Action. I want to thank Cindy Ziff for her partnership. I'm a board member of Jersey Shore Partnership, which advocates for the environmental cleanup and restoration of the beaches. So these are all things that, this isn't a partisan thing. This is a New Jersey thing. For a long time, we were the butt of every late night joke for the way we were treating our $9 billion tourism of the Jersey Shore. And Middletown is the very top of the Jersey Shore and the beginning of the Jersey Shore. So we should be a leader in making sure that we're preserving that industry. So I want to thank the TC for that. All right. With that, I'll open it up for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to make a public comment may step forward. We just ask that you state your name and address for the record. We ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes. At 4 minutes, I'll let you know that you have 1 minute remaining. John will bring around the microphone. Any member of the public wishing to make a public comment? Yes, sir. Come on forward. Right in the middle here.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, my name is Howard Cragel. I live in the township at 72 Swimming River Road. And I'm the advocacy coordinator for the Jersey Shore Touring Society. Jersey Shore Touring Society is a bicycling club comprised of 400 members from Monmouth County and also from Middletown. And we're concerned in general about the safety of cyclists and pedestrians and runners and other users of the road. You may be familiar that road fatalities and injuries have been climbing over the past few years. If you look at the current statistics year to date, they're equivalent to past year. And in fact, pedestrians and cyclists are up over fatalities in recent years. On March 1st of last year, the New Jersey passed a safe passing law. The safe passing law was patterned after the Move Over law. The Move Over law is intended and does protect law enforcement officers and emergency vehicle operators on highways across New Jersey by requiring motorists to move over to the usually left lane. You see these signs all over the place on the turnpike signs. The safe passing law is patterned after that law and requires motorists to pass vulnerable road users, runners, bikers, walkers, by allowing 4 feet distance or slowing down to 25 miles an hour. And so this law is intended to protect those people. We're asking towns in Monmouth County and also in Middletown to help to get the word out. The Move Over law, as everybody's probably seen the message boards by the Turnpike Authority getting the message out. That luxury hasn't been afforded in the same way to the safe passing law. So we'd like to ask for your help in getting the word out. The time is now, of course. It's springtime. More and more people are out walking to work, walking to the store, children, recreating, just walking for recreation. So now is the time to to get the word out. We're asking for your help in doing this. And I've talked to people, members of the club, who are also willing to help you. So if there's a person or a group within the township that's chartered to take something like this on, we'd be happy to help do what we can to make Middletown a safe and enjoyable place to walk, run, and bike. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm happy to, we'll grab your information. Laura will grab it from you, your contact information. Might be something we want to talk to the chief about, Tony, potentially having some of our message boards in areas that we know that there's a great deal of, especially bicycle traffic, that, there's possibilities for people to move over into different lanes, or at least give that safe space. You mentioned the 4 feet. Obviously, the New Jersey move over law, is important because we saw too many members of law enforcement having close calls with vehicles as they transported down the turnpike and the parkway. But it might be a good idea to get that message out there for the law that you mentioned for bicyclists.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Laura, I'll take that information from you, okay? Any other member of the public wishing to make a public comment? Go ahead, Melanie. Ladies first, Bruce. All right, good.
You know why I'm here.
Hello, Melanie.
Melanie Elmiger, Green Tree Terrace in Lincroft. Just 4 words, 2-way Acme Road.
We're waiting to finish the easement closing documents.
Okay.
Once that's done, a much more brilliant attorney is sitting next to me tonight. Make sure that gets on the record there, Karen, all right? All right, good. But we're working on finalizing the closing documents for that.
Okay. See, there's advantages and disadvantages to having a very optimistic mayor. This has been a disadvantage because I was hoping beginning of February, now it's the beginning of March.
Well, the good
What
thing
are we
is that
thinking here?
Well, the good thing is
What's
that
the
we
ballpark?
didn't have to do any adjustments in terms of financing because we had the financing available.
Right.
So, and as I think I mentioned to you privately, that process would have taken more than a month.
Right.
It
And that's cleared out.
We
Everything
do not need to
went
do-
through with that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to do that, which saved us 45 or so days, 50 days in reality. So as soon as between the seller and the township have agreed on the language and the verbiage in those closing documents, I'll sign them.
Okay. Has a date been thrown out?
Not that I'm aware of, Gary, either.
April, March?
Oh, no, I'm hoping before the end of this month, we'll be able to get
Okay.
it done.
See, that's the optimist.
Yeah.
So
We
April.
want this deal done just as much as you do. It's
I
something that's been
know.
hanging over our head forever.
The only person that didn't want to see this was the owner, right? Because there was obvious business reasons why. Yeah, but fortunately, we all came together and got it done.
Okay.
So,
All right. Fingers crossed. Okay.
so don't worry, there's been no hiccups in
Okay.
terms of that paperwork.
Great. So my second question is this. You mentioned tonight about Sunnyside Road and the Almost Home application. It's possible that could be setting a bad precedent, and I will tell you why. I'm very concerned about the way things are put through zoning. In other towns, and I know every municipality has their own methods and ordinances and systems, but in other towns, you don't pass go without a zoning application with a control number carrying that application, even if you don't need a variance. So for instance, for the commercial properties, you have a new tenant. Say the old tenant was a fast food restaurant. Now the new tenant is going to be some kind of entertainment venue or something. Their first stop should be zoning. They should go to the zoning officer and say, is this allowed? Do I have enough parking for this? Are there any restraints on me as a tenant, as a property owner? That's not happening. And that's why Almost Home happened. And we have other potential properties throughout Middletown, particularly in Lincroft, where the tenant is turning over with very limited parking. And so I feel like overall, that whole process has to be examined to prevent this from happening, because it ends up costing us money for legal fees in order to fight it and to deal with this business owner that really didn't do things right, or didn't know, or didn't consult the right people. And I feel like that it really has to be examined overall in Middletown.
I think I would say this, and I've said this to Tony, and I've said this to everybody. You also can't punish success, right? He has a successful business.
Oh, I'm not complaining about him. I'm trying to prevent future problems.
No, I understand. But right, street parking is not illegal either. It's not prevented on that street.
Right.
So we're trying to mitigate a situation and improve what the neighbors came to us with their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Also, while simultaneously not punishing business owners, providing them with a friendly municipality that is willing to work with people within the confines of the law.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'm sure it is annoying to have people, that don't care, park on your lawn, park on your property. That shouldn't be allowed. And we're trying to mitigate, the instances that has occurred.
Okay. But every property that has a business has a certain number of vehicle parking spots that they need.
Correct, but this is a non-conforming use already, right? Because this is a residential zone with a
Okay.
business at the end of it.
Right.
And right, the Sunnyside Deli.
It was
for-
takeout. It was takeout.
It was
Grab and
takeout
go.
with some tables inside,
Mhm.
but there was no set number as to how many tables and,
Right.
issues that went along with that.
Mhm.
So now we've come to, then you had COVID, which removed certain restrictions under the governor's executive order, which allowed for the outdoor dining and all these different things. So there was a multitude of things that I think all culminated to this moment.
Mhm.
But I think now we've put ourselves in a good position to ensure that the neighbors are happy
Right.
and also allow for this business to continue.
Right. I don't want to look back. I want to look forward.
Yeah.
I want to say this is something I really hope can be examined and addressed in order to prevent future problems just like that.
You talked about is exactly the process that
That we go
happens here.
through anyway.
Everyone goes to zoning first.
But how do
If
you
have
how
a
do you-
specific example,
Yeah,
let me know.
I-
Well,
do
I
you
spoke
think-
with the planning board, and I spoke with the zoning officer, and they said, well, they won't come to us unless they need a variance.
That's not true. Anybody, when I need a new fence, I still have to go to the.
No, I'm talking about commercial. I'm not talking about homeowners, because we're worried, we don't want to spend the money.
Any
Any
application
change of business
has to
get
come
zoning
before our,
approval.
yeah.
And then what happens? Like,
There's an
Will the building department accept
The-
an application for a permit for electric or whatever if they don't have the zoning?
no.
Really? Okay.
Do you have an example? Because you know what, the one thing I don't like though
Yeah.
is talking in hypotheticals.
Oh, of course
If you
not.
have
Of
an
course
exa-
not.
If you have
But
an example, tell us.
my example is this. I don't get the feeling that zoning is stopping things before they get to the point that they did at Almost Home. If Almost Home went to zoning first and got their zoning application approved, none of this would have happened.
They did,
They did. The problem with Almost Home was when they came in and got zoning approval, it was supposed to be for a deli, just like Sunnyside. The problem is it blew up as soon as they opened. They started having more and more business, more and more customers, and it kind of evolved into a bigger operation than Sunnyside Deli was. So then we said, well, you're not really a deli anymore, you're a restaurant.
Right.
That's why they're going to the zoning board.
Right.
Because they're a restaurant. But the process that they went through is exactly what you described.
But they should have been told at
They
zoning
weren't.
how many spaces,
No, it has nothing to do with parking.
how many, and they had the freezer in the back. I'm just saying, I'm just using them as an example. I don't live near there. I do live in Lincroft. I don't feel personally affected, and I haven't followed all the details of it, except that I have a feeling, because there are certain properties that I'm aware of that are changing business, and there's no zoning application,
How
There
would you
is
know
though.
that? How would you know that?
There is.
because I called and asked.
You asked if there was a zoning application for a change of a business?
Yes, in Lincroft, at what used to be the Pastrami House.
Right?
Right.
So there's a new tenant moving in there?
There is a tenant that wants to make it a gentleman's club for smoking cigars and drinking, because they can have like a private humidor.
They,
of some sort.
they will have to get zoning approval.
Yeah.
before they can do that.
Okay, all right. And so when you get zoning approval, does that zoning approval number get stamped on it? And then when I'm in the building department, and now they need to do some kind of, movement of walls or electric and that, and they're making a plan for
It's
something.
all done by the.
They look at it and say, oh, they don't have that zoning control number, I can't.
They won't issue an electrical permit or a building permit.
they don't have
for a
zoning
tenant If
approval.
they don't have zoning approval
Okay.
first.
And they
On-
need it
on the-
even if the use is the same, if it's
Mel-
going
Mel-
from restaurant to
Melanie,
restaurant?
I think you should take a look at the zoning application first. Because if you look at a zoning application, you'll know exactly why what you're saying is what we're already doing. It says right on there whether or not you're going to need electrical, or are you going to be applying for permits? These are all things that are
All right.
already being
Well, I
requested.
would like to follow up this conversation with somebody, and maybe Mr. Mercantante or someone in the building department, or just to understand better what's happening with certain parcels and certain businesses, to make sure that, that is being adhered to. Because again, it's going to turn into the parking and the neighbors and, different issues with that. And if the use is even appropriate. Because after the fact, it's so easy to just ask for forgiveness instead of permission, right? Like, that's what happens, because you want businesses to be successful. They've gone so far down the road. They have this beautiful new restaurant. Now what? You're gonna tell them to shut it down? So, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to be proactive and understand the methods to make sure that new business owners and their landlords are following the right rules. That's
Yeah,
it.
It's up to the owners to follow those rules.
I know.
Yeah, and we enforce that.
Okay.
I have sat through many meetings with regards to Almost Home, 4 or
I know.
5. Tony has sat through more of them.
And they have summonses that have been issued.
Yeah.
I know.
Pending before municipal court. So
Yeah.
the
Okay.
process is the process.
Okay.
Not everything goes smoothly.
Of course not. Yeah. Well, I was concerned because the zoning officer said the guys that do the construction know all the loopholes. And I said, I don't know what
Polls to what, though?
the process, I guess you can,
Oh, look.
there's
I'll
wiggle room, I guess.
talk to the zoning officer and
Yeah.
ask him if he had that conversation with you. But if he had a conversation with you and said, oh, these people know the loopholes, that's very inappropriate. So I would seriously doubt he would say something like that.
Okay. Got it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Bruce? Come on down.
Bruce Stafford, 39 Brainard, we're Monmouth. By any chance Ted's not here tonight, right?
No.
I don't know if anybody can answer my first question. In the Middletown minutes, it indicated that the slide gates at the marina were put into the spring mode
Mhm.
until further notice. Does anybody know what the spring mode means? For the slide gates at the marina?
What spring mode means?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, what's the definition of that?
For the slide gates, yeah, it has something to do, I think, with the position of the slide gates.
Yeah, I believe they were closed in preparation for the storm and the high tides that were coming. I don't know if it still is. I doubt it still is, but
No,
it was closed that night.
it was closed Friday. Yes. But there's a specific definition, I believe, for the placement of the slide gates, because I believe sometimes they open them from the bottom, a certain amount of feet, sometimes to allow the water to flow. But I'm not clear on spring mode. They call it spring mode. And it specifically says in the Middletown minutes that they're going to be left in that position until further notice.
I believe it meant closed, but I'll verify and I can let you know.
Okay.
I'll have Ted call you.
Now we have a situation. In addition to that comment I just made about the slide gates, it also mentioned that the valve on Wilson was left open for the water to drain off from our streets.
Mhm.
That's fine. That's a great idea. Until Saturday morning, DEP opened the slide gates at the marina. We went through 5 high tides since those slide gates were open Saturday. That valve on Wilson never went back into the remote position until this afternoon. It was defaulted to be in the open position and remain open, I'm assuming, based on them knowing that the slide gates were closed at the marina by DEP. Ed and I, we had a disagreement for quite a while because DEP kept saying that it was the responsibility of Middletown to tell them when to close the slide gates. Middletown said, no, it's DEP. We're on the same sheet of music now. Because at one of the meetings, Ted said, I'll fess up to the fact that I do call them and indicate that they should close them, but it doesn't come as a directive from him. I dealt with DEP. They said, no, we're responsible for the slide gates. But we have nothing at all to do with the valve on Wilson. Responsibility of Middletown. Now, that's why I was hoping Ted was here, because somebody on Friday defaulted that valve so that it remained open. Okay? It was in the local position, which means it's open and it can't close until somebody puts it back into the remote. We went through 5 high tides since Saturday morning. Somebody switched it over today, this afternoon. It's now in the remote position. Valve is closed. And we have another high tide coming in right now. So the valve is working. But last but not least, Tony, you probably know, there's really no reason to leave that valve open when they close the slide gates. Because the slide gates are doing their job. DEP is doing an outstanding job with closing those slide gates at mean low tide. So as long as the slide gates are closed, that means the only water in Pew's Creek is whatever's run off from rainwater, okay? And if it does get deep enough, one of the 3 pumps that go on over there at 80 gallons per second, there's no reason to touch that valve on Wilson. I got a feeling that Ted feels that if it should malfunction, he gave me the flow chart from when I came down here and said that we got flooded on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of December. We got hit really bad on the 23rd. And I was down at Canes Lane on the 22nd to tell him, because the 21st, it all iced up around the storm drains. I missed the high tide, but when it went out, it all froze. On the 22nd, I had water on both sides of me. On the 23rd, we got slammed. Boom. Ted's in agreement with me based on the flow chart that he gave me that I was correct with that valve malfunctioning. But he told me he was going to deal with the manufacturer since the 17th of January and find out how he can determine what position was that valve in. We're both in agreement, though, because when you look at the flow chart, it shows that the water was at the same level on both sides of the valve. That's an indication there's a problem. But getting back to what I said about slide gates, DEP opened them slide gates up Saturday morning. The valve was still in a default position being open. That valve can't close unless somebody goes over there and manually switches it over to remote.
We'll definitely talk to Ted and see if they purposely left it open or they.
No, they purposely left it open. It was in Middletown minutes.
I understand that, but whether they left it, you said till today.
Till this afternoon.
So did you have street flooding since Friday?
No.
After Friday?
But the water was like 4 to 5 inches from the top of the storm drain coming out?
Right, so there was no flooding.
No.
So then it was irrelevant whether the gate was open or closed, right?
We're lucky that it was closed this afternoon because with full moon tomorrow, chances are in another hour, we'd be underwater. And you know what the bad part of the whole thing is? It was a weekend. You know how much trouble I've had getting a hold of Ted Maloney on a Saturday or Sunday? I had an officer one day said, I'll get a hold of him. He called Canes Lane and left a message at his desk. That doesn't do me any good. Doesn't do me any good at all. But once again, I wish Ted was here and you can tell him that he's also on numerous times indicated to me, he's got an app on his phone that tells him what that valve is doing. Now, I don't know if he gets an alarm when there's an issue, but he should have gotten some kind of an error message indicating how come the water is so high on both sides of the valve. Now, if that app is anything like the app on my phone for Wawa, I never look at it until I need a coffee. You know what I'm saying? He tells me he knows exactly what's going on with that valve.
I'm always tracking my rewards at Wawa.
Yeah.
Bruce, I don't know about you.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? If he's getting an alarm or some kind of an error message on his app on that phone about that valve, we need somebody to respond. Not me. Not me.
All right, well, let Tony talk to Ted.
Okay.
All right, Bruce, is that all right?
Yeah, that's
All right.
fine. I mean, I'm happy now that it's closed,
Yeah.
but think about what I said, that at time of bad storms coming or of anticipation of, because DEP, they can look at the tide charts. We really didn't have to go through all of this. They put all of those road closed signs out there on Friday. They weren't even used the whole weekend. High tides weren't anticipated to be any higher than 4.6 feet. Nothing to worry about. We had a south-southeast wind, less to worry about. So, but that valve really needs to remain open when they close the slide gates because we don't have a problem. And if the water gets deep enough, the pump automatically goes on. And if it gets worse than that, pump 2 will go on. There's 3 of them over there at 80 gallons per second per pump. That's a lot of water.
A lot of water.
Yeah, a lot. They said it could fill up a Olympic-sized swimming pool in a matter of a couple of minutes.
Seconds.
Seconds?
Seconds.
Then you heard it.
Yeah. 3 seconds.
Yeah, but I can say this, with one pump running, I've already witnessed that the water level, when we get flooded over there, it maintains the top of the storm drains. So I believe they have it calibrated so that it shouldn't get any worse than the storm drains filling to the top if that pump should have to go on. Because I witnessed that already. This was probably a year ago, and they were still in the process of calibrating it, you know, with the different levels of the roads over there.
Right.
Because Monmouth is the lowest, Brainerd is next, and Wilson is the highest. If you get water on Wilson, it's bad.
All 3 pumps are running.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Bruce. Any other member of the public? Yep, Don. Uh, 3 minutes ago.
Oh, jeez.
Don't worry.
Good evening. My name's Don Watson, living at 1 Collinson Drive. Just a few comments about, first of all, my comment was Hillside Avenue. That road should be in Beirut or something. It's disastrous. Even if they just patch some of the potholes would be best or better. Anything would be better. Just throw some stones on the road. Terrible. Anyway, this gentleman that first came up talked about bicycles. And I know, see a lot of scooters running around town and electric bicycles, which are slow-moving vehicles that we have an ordinance against. I would like to see that being enforced. I know a child was hit on their scooter on Cherry Tree Farm Road a few months ago. And I'd like to see things like that being avoided. So if we can enforce the rules that we have, like Melody was suggestion about the zoning board, and you were saying that businesses come to the zoning board first.
They don't come before the zoning board, they come to our zoning officer.
Well, they fill out an application.
But that doesn't mean that they go before the board.
Right. That means that,
Most do not.
right. I heard me say that.
Is that what I sound like?
I thought my brother was there. Anyway, they come to the zoning board to see if the business they want to open is allowed.
No, they come. if
I
they
thought
need-
that's what you had said earlier.
No. They come before to the zoning officer.
Right.
Not every zoning application
To see if they're-
requires a board approval.
To
If
see
you
if
need
their
a
business is
variance,
allowed.
yeah, if you need a
Right.
variance, that's when you would come before the board.
Right. So I've been reading a lot about Taco Bell.
Mhm.
Okay. It's an undersized lot. There's so many violations, or not violations, variances that they need to apply for.
Yeah.
The zoning application should automatically say, this is not allowed here.
It did, but every person, company has the right to due process, right?
Right,
So
so
they're
they-
allowed to come before the zoning board of adjustments and plead their case.
Okay.
But if I went back and went and looked at the zoning board as to the number of applications that are rejected versus approved, I mean, the disparity is going to be mostly rejected, a massive disparity. And listen, I hear you. There's the zoning boards, the application for the old Provident Bank where Taco Bell wants to go. It's in violation, and that's why they're before the zoning board, is they need a wide variety of variances. It's an
Yeah, but that's
undersized
okay.
lot. It's within 1,500 feet of another
Yeah.
drive-through. It's not like you're taking it and making it another bank where the drive-through is going to be used at a similar or consistent rate that the
Right.
Provident drive-through. Now you're talking about a fast food chain. So I hear you. I hear
Yeah.
you.
I was just using that as an example.
Sure.
Because it's been publicized so much.
I know.
in the
I'm
press.
so happy that the Asbury Park Press loves to talk about Taco Bells, but when we talk about other things, they don't, nobody,
Yeah.
I never, does anyone even write for the Asbury Park Press anymore? Our guy's been gone for 2 years now.
Right. And the patch is covering it also.
Yeah,
The
well-
patch says it's in there already.
Okay, well, that's wrong too.
Yeah, of course.
I can promise you that's wrong.
I correct her
Yeah.
about that. Anyway, I also saw on the bill list that there was a fee paid to the attorney's firm for condemnation processes on the road behind Acme.
Mhm.
Is that why we're finally getting that road passed? Because the homeowner or whoever owned the property is now kind of being forced to relinquish it?
No, that was,
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Yeah.
You have a very soft voice.
Because this deals with a potential real estate acquisition that hasn't yet been finalized, it's
Okay.
not an appropriate matter for a discussion in a public meeting. We don't want to compromise the progress that we've made.
Right,
And so
obviously.
we are working on it, but it's not a question that I think it would be appropriate for the mayor to answer right now.
Okay, I was just questioning it because it's in the bill list that was adopted tonight.
Right.
That's all.
I can share that many times, if you're looking for an easement or a right-of-way, it could start out or be characterized as potentially needing condemnation. And oftentimes, something that would require condemnation, if the parties don't cooperate, ends up getting settled. So
So
sometimes,
proceedings could have been initiated, but it might not have been.
But avoided.
right,
right.
lawyers, we always hope to settle
Keep all your
something
cards open.
rather than going to litigation, because in terms of timing, litigation is much more time consuming
I know.
than it would be to,
And I'm
Okay.
paying you guys to do that. That's why I question it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, Don. Thank you, Karen. Any other member of the public wishing to make a public comment? Mattis, nothing? All right. Motion to close motion to close public portion and adjourn.
Second.
Committeewoman Kratz.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hybel. Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Motion carries to adjourn.
Have a great night, everybody. And I was incorrect in what I said. The buses are approaching exit 117 right now, so you got time to get over there. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you all.